Okay, so we're doing the Bhagavatam today, is that right?
Yes.
For a change? Okay, just checking. All right, matter of fact, this is the verse. I hope you can see it.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll read it one time. Sayad Ajaya. No, actually, what I'll do is I'll go through the word for word, and that way we'll do both at the same time. So whoops. Sa means he, and it refers to the living entity in this context. Yat is because, and ajaya by the influence of the material energy. Two, we know what that is, but ajam, referring to the material energy, anusayita, lies down next to, gunan, her qualities, referring to the modes of material nature in the feminine, her qualities. Cha and Jusan means assuming. Bhajati, he takes on. Sarupatam, forms resembling the qualities of nature. So the soul, the living entity takes on forms. Tat anu, following that, mrityum, death. Apeta means deprived. Bhaga means of his assets, so being deprived of his assets. Twam, you, and then ut is an important word. On the other hand, Jahasi leaves aside tam, her material nature, ahi, a snake, eva, as if, twacham, its old discarded skin, which is a really interesting metaphor, about the snake giving up their discarded skin and using that in relationship to Krishna. Atabhaga, or Narayan, endowed with all assets. Mahasi, in your spiritual powers. Mahasi, you are glorified. Asta gunite, eightfold, like asta saki, asta eight. Uh, Aparimeya, unlimited, and Bhaga means whose greatness. The illusory material nature attracts the minute living entity to embrace her. That's quite a sentence right there. The illusory material nature attracts the minute living entity to embrace her, and as a result, he assumes forms composed of her qualities. Subsequently, he loses, so we take on the form of the illusory material nature's qualities, and subsequently, or therefore, we lose, or he, in our case, he loses all his spiritual qualities. And what's the result? Must undergo repeated deaths. You, however, avoid the material energy in the same way that a snake abandons its old skin. Glorious in your possession of eight mystic perfections, excuse me, you enjoy unlimited opulences. And the purport goes like this, that although the jiva is pure spirit, qualitatively equal with the Supreme Lord, he is prone to being degraded by embracing the ignorance of material illusion. So we actually go for it. We embrace. It's a act. It's a voluntary act. It's a proactive act, you could say. But when he becomes entranced by the allurements of Maya, he accepts bodies and senses that are designed to let him indulge in forgetfulness. So each of us can think for maybe 20 seconds, uh, what are what is your or my what is our individually allurements of Maya? What's really allures you in Maya's kingdom? We all have based on the modes of material nature, which we'll be talking about today, we may have different allurements. But rest assured, we all can be allured. Produced from the raw material of Maya's three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and nescience. These bodies envelop the spirit soul in varieties of unhappiness, culminating in death and rebirth. The spirit soul and the individual soul share the same spiritual nature, but the supreme soul cannot be trapped by ignorance like his infinitesimal companion. Maybe someone can look up the word infinitesimal. Smoke may engulf the glow of a small molten sphere of copper, covering its light in darkness, but the vast globe of the sun will never suffer the same kind of eclipse. Maya, after all, is the personality of Godhead's faithful maid servant, the outward expansion of his internal Yogamaya potency. Sri Narada Pancharatna thus states in a conversation between Shruti and Vidya, I'll read the English, the covering potency derived from her is Mahamaya, um, the regulator of everything material. The entire universe becomes bewildered by her. So not just like, a few of us folks in New York or America. The entire universe becomes bewildered by her. And thus every living entity falsely identifies with his material body. Just as a snake casts aside his old skin, knowing that it is not part of his essential identity, so the Supreme Lord always avoids his external material energy. We're going to talk about this, but it's very significant. We kind of just take it for granted. Yeah, Krishna is above the modes. But as we're going to be talking about, the modes are so powerful that it's significant that he's not affected by them at all. There is no insufficiency or limit to any of his eightfold mystic opulences, consisting of anima, the power to become infinitesimal, there's that word again, but used in a different context, mahima, the ability to become infinitely large, and so on. Therefore, the shadow of material darkness has no scope for entering the domain of his unequaled, resplendent glories. Nice words, huh? Unequaled, resplendent glories. For the sake of those whose realization of spiritual life is only gradually awakening, the Upanishads sometimes speak in general terms of Atma or Brahman, not openly distinguishing the difference between the superior and inferior souls, the Paramatma and Jivatma. But often enough they describe this duality in unequivocal terms. This is from the Svetasvatara Upanishad. Two companion birds sit together, we know this example, in the shelter of the same peepala tree. One of them is relishing the taste of the tree's berries, while the other refrains from eating and instead watches over his friend. In this analogy, the two birds are the soul and the supersoul. The tree is the body, and the taste of the berries is the various types of pleasure, sense pleasure. Now, let's really listen to this last prayer of Sridhar Swami, especially the last sentence. The glance you cast upon your consort compresses time, the material propensities of the living entities, and so on. So that glance compresses time, our propensities, everything that glance of the Lord. This glance dances upon her face, upon material nature's face, thus awakening the multitude of created entities who take birth in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay, so that's a little quick summation of creation. O Lord Nrihari, your Maya has put her foot on my head and is pressing down extremely hard, causing me great distress. Now I have come to you for shelter. Please make her desist. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, like I was saying, Krishna's being above the modes. Something that we read it. Okay, Krishna's above the modes of material nature. By the way, what's for breakfast? It's very, very significant because the modes are. I'm going to use a big word. The ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're all present. Almost 100 verses in the Bhagavad Gita About 12% of the Bhagavad Gita's verses are about the three modes of material nature. They, what do they say? A fish is not even aware that they're in water because just water, they're just used to it. Water is everywhere. We're always affected by the modes of material nature. I mean, always except when we're full, being Krishna conscious. But you get my point. And it affects the friends that we choose, the food that we eat, the music we listen to, the books that we read, the work that we do, the way we communicate with others. It's all modes of material nature. Prabhupada writes in the purport in Bhagavad Gita, just to emphasize this, listen to this first sentence. The whole world is enchanted by the three modes of material nature. In the purport, we said the universe. So the whole world, or many universes. Those who are bewildered by these three modes cannot understand that transcendental to this material nature is the Supreme Lord Krishna. Then he goes on to say, so first we heard the whole world. Now he says every living entity under the influence of material nature has a particular type of body and a particular type of psychological and biological activities accordingly. Psychological, so our mind is constantly being affected, influenced by the modes of material nature. Biological, our body. And then one more from the same purport. There are many different kinds of living entities, human beings, demigods, animals, etc. And again, Prabhupada is saying, and each and every one of them is under the influence of material nature. And all of them have forgotten the transcendent personality of Godhead. So we'll just go through, briefly what, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter is the first time we hear about the modes in verse 45, Trigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistrigunya Bhavarjuna, that telling Arjuna to rise above the modes. And then in the third chapter, in the fifth verse, Krishna says that all activities at every moment in our lives are affected by the modes, and we are forced to act helplessly. I just think forced to act, just like in the 12-step programs, right? The first step is to say, we're helpless. We're helpless. And that is, in the influence or the addiction. But here, Krishna is saying, no, we're all forced to act helplessly by the modes of material nature. And then if you fast forward 22 verses later, in 27, Krishna is saying, Prakrite Kriyamana Gunai Kamarni Sarvasa, that all activities are carried out by material nature, even though we think I'm the doer, and the results of my fruitive activities is all because of my hard work, etc. And then if you fast forward in the fourth chapter, verse 13, it says that the modes of nature are the doer, and Krishna is saying he's akarta, he's not the doer. So just a brief aside on this, who's the doer? Krishna emphasizes different points at different times, depending on the context in the Bhagavad Gita. So in some places he'll emphasize that we're not the doer. We shouldn't be puffed up. Don't be proud of doing things. Ultimately, Krishna's the doer. And then here in fourth chapter, no, I'm not the doer. Krishna says, Akarta. He says, I created the Varnashram system, the three modes of material nature, but how you're placed in them, that's your business. So in the fourth chapter, Krishna is saying we have to take responsibility. We're culpable for our activities. So actually, there's three doers. There's the modes of material nature, but they're inert matter. There's Krishna, the ultimate sanctioner, and there's us and our desire, and they work together. We desire something. Krishna sanctions it neutrally, and then the modes of material nature carry it out. But the modes of material nature, they're there. They are there. And then in the seventh chapter, Krishna says, so this important point, that he's above the modes. But then in the 14th chapter, right, he says, Daivihi Shagunamayi Mamamaya Dorachaya. And the word for word, Prabhupada says Dorachaya is very difficult to overcome. In the purport, in the verse, he becomes a little nicer and he just says it's difficult. But it's very difficult to overcome because it's Krishna's energy. right? And then you fast forward to the 14th chapter, and the whole chapter pretty much is about the modes of material nature and how we're conditioned, our destination after death, depending on what modes of material nature we're influenced by, our knowledge of, and the difference between how we think in sattva, in rajas, and tamas, um, and ultimately, and also in the 14th chapter in verse 20, is how to transcend the modes. So we can also think, the mode of goodness is like self-giving. The mode of passion is selfish. Uh, and the mode of ignorance is self-destructive. Or the mode of goodness is conscious. The mode of passion is subconscious. The mode of ignorance is unconscious. The mode of goodness is transparent. The mode of passion is translucent. And the mode of ignorance is opaque. Right? So there's different ways you can, but we get a clear understanding of that 14th chapter so we can start seeing the modes in our day-to-day life. And Krishna underscores this in the 17th chapter by, yes, your faith is affected by the modes, your worship, the food you eat, the thing that we do at least 2-3 times a day, affected by the modes, which ones we like, which ones what our fridge looks like, right? Not the outside, what's inside the fridge. Sacrifices that we do, austerities that we do, affected all controlled by the modes. What to speak of our mind, in the 17th chapter it mentions penance, charity. And then again in the 18th chapter, knowledge, actions, performers of action, understanding, determination, happiness, the way we experience happiness in this world, all affected by the modes of material nature. They are everywhere. They're everywhere. And it's good, and we are meant, Krishna wouldn't have spent 95 or 96 verses in the Bhagavad Gita on this if we're not meant to be aware of them and how they're affecting us. So what do we do with all this? First thing, we observe the modes working on us. Okay? You can look around your room, and is your room in the mode of goodness? Is everything, a place for everything and everything in a place? Everything's neat and clean? Of course, some of you are in a temple room. That's cheating. Uh, um, we can look at, open up our car door. Is our car really clean and externally and internally? Um, we can, so many things. I'll get to this more in a minute, or think about what your consciousness was like at 7 p.m. last night or at 5 o'clock this morning. Which modes of material nature were affecting us? They are at work constantly, 24/7. And after we observe them, then the next step is to understand they're not me. They're working, they're influencing my body, my mind, my consciousness, but I'm the soul. I'm actually separate from these modes. So that's the first step, to observe the modes, be conscious that they're there. And then the next step is to cultivate goodness, and that would be, again, what is our where we live? What does that look like? What's in our fridge? All the foodstuffs there are sattvic, that give life, and what did Prabhupada, Krishna says in the Gita, they're juicy, and anyway, they're good for you, basically, in a nutshell. And what to speak of our mental consciousness? I remember Satchidananda Swami, I love this thing. He said, practice mental hygiene. Right? So hygiene we think of in the mode of goodness, keeping clean and wearing clothes that are clean and neat and etc. And what to speak of mental hygiene, because of all the ways the modes affect us, they affect our mind so much. So so we observe the modes at work, we cultivate goodness, and then we actually think, if these modes are so powerful, they control the entire, not even this universe. This universe is one mustard seed of so many different universes, and Krishna is above them. Krishna is not controlled at all by the modes of material nature. That is, of course, he created them. So understanding that Krishna's position is super, super important. That Krishna is above, and this is explained, in chapter 7, verse 13 of the Gita, really clearly. And therefore, Sridhar Swami can pray in this purport, please make her desist. Such powerful words. Please make her desist. And let's go back to that in just a minute, because that mood is Sharanagati. That mood is what will help us. So let's just read a little from this purport in 713. It's so powerful. Prabhupada writes, another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. So not just tied, tightly tied. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. Okay, so this is getting to that point about please make her desist. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Must be helped by a person. Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. And listen to that. I think Prabhupada used this word carefully, release. Especially if you get out of jail early, you're released. It's a kindness. It's not just by our hard work. So without such superior help, and there's that word again, like release and help of someone, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. But I think this help is, again, I can't read Prabhupada's mind if he specifically chose that word for a reason, but the idea is that it helps, but you also need Krishna's help, Krishna's kindness. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order the insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. It reminds me of, the Garuda ordering the ocean to give the sparrows' eggs back, right? So Krishna can order the insurmountable energy, insurmountable. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul. And I love this, out of his parental affection for the living entity, who was originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender, there's that word, Sharanagati, surrender under the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get freed from the clutches of the stringent material nature. Stringent. Unstoppable, stringent, very interesting word. So now if we read that purport and then we think of Sridhar Swami's prayer, please make her desist. Please make her desist. And it's only by this Sharanagati, this surrender. So I was thinking of, just Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sharanagati, his prayers. They're so beautiful. He writes, the current of this worldly river is strong and relentless. We just had a flood here at the temple in DC. We have a creek going through the property. And it rained so hard the other day. It was literally like a river going through, not just the creek, but a large part of the lower part of our property here. And we had one of those huge dumpsters, not those small ones, the ones that are about 8 feet tall, 10 feet wide, 20 feet width, or whatever the other one is. And that dumpster was half a mile down the creek in somebody's backyard. So here it says, the current of this worldly river is strong and relentless. A frightening, gloomy death approaches. How I wish I could give up my worldly attachments, Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayers. I would worship you, O Lord, but it is a useless hope. Now please hear me, O Lord, for I am utterly helpless. Utterly helpless. Bhaktivinoda says, without your mercy, everything is lost. Please give me the shelter at your lotus feet. Or as Sridhar Swami says, please make her desist. Hmm? So they're everywhere. They're incredibly powerful, and please make her desist. Now we have to do our part. We have to do our, there's Chestarupa and Pavarupa. There's the external work of getting up early, chanting our rounds, et cetera, coming to class, and et cetera, all the positive things about bhakti. But there's also all of that has to be not, yeah, I would say has to be coated with this mood of surrender. It's not just the externals. That's the Chesta Rupa. That's really important. But it's also the Bhava Rupa, the mood of surrender. And that combination uh, will inspire Krishna to release us. So we'll end with in the 20th verse of the 14th chapter, where Krishna says, when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body. So if we can do that in the way we just talked about, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So what are your thoughts about the three modes of material nature and the mood that what we need to, and how to be more conscious of them in our day-to-day lives, cultivate goodness and understand Krishna is above them and take shelter of Krishna so that we can become above them? What do y'all think?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just reflecting, your perfect description. We're swept away by the current. That the analogy is given. If you jump into a fast-flowing river, what in that direction that the river is going, at the speed that that river is going, and you may think, yeah, I'm just controlling. You're not controlling anything, right? And that you explained that very carefully about the first step of the 12-step program. In the beginning stages, people are thinking, I'm okay. I don't have a problem. I just drink and then fall asleep and then crash down and then I'm no problem, But there's a point when a person realizes, my life is out of control. And this powerful current is destroying my health, my sanity, my relationships, my ability to work. And I can't stop. I can't stop. And that's a very important first step. I've got a problem. I can't do this by myself. And then understanding, second step is understand there's a power greater than me, like you're explaining, Krishna's completely transcendental. He's outside of this, he's not influenced by this, and he's capable of assisting us. And then the next step is we turn to him and say, Lord, you know what? Help. I need help, and then, we work those steps of like understanding I'm it's out of control, understanding there's a higher power, turning to that higher power, and turning our life over. I have a desire to turn my life over to you, piece by piece, step by step, inch by inch. The books in my house, the stuff in my refrigerator, the clothing I wear, the schedule I have, the degree of commitment I have to sadhana. And what Maya does is the outright, direct, obvious onslaught of material energy. But then Maya works very subtly. And she lets the air out of our tires. First step, destroy the sadhana. I'm too busy doing service to channel my rounds. It's a sheep in wolf's clothing. A wolf in sheep in wolf's clothing. A wolf in sheep's clothing. Wolf is dangerous, but a wolf in sheep clothing. I have to do so much service, so I don't have time to go to the morning program. I don't have time to listen to class. I don't have time to channel my round because I'm doing so much service for Krishna, right? So that the mind lets the air out of our tires like that, removes our protection and our benefit and our shelter, and then gradually swallows us, I'm getting swallowed by my own mind. Anyway, you explained it all very carefully, just reflecting and emphasizing, this is really important. Don't forget that Maya is so powerful, the most material nature. Prabhupada said, my disciples don't have a healthy fear of the
Here.
power of the material energy. So they're just a little casual. And then what happens? Pretty soon you're down the river with the dumpster.
That's a good one. I'll have to use that one. Down the river with the dumpster. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Repeating Prabhupada, hopefully it's Prabhupada Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Adi Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu, you're on mute. Now you're not.
Yeah, Haribo Prabhu.
All right.
This is um, an important class or subject matter in the sense that we can talk about Krishna's pastimes, and that, of course, when we allow ourselves to imbue those pastimes, it gives us the sweetness, a hope, a dream, no matter what, if we wish so, um, you know, a world in which we yearn to become a part of. Um, but we are born into these modes. It's our constitution. I have two dogs, and though they're dogs, actually, I've had several dogs and horses and et cetera, et cetera. But dogs, I can see it mostly in my pets. They're just different. One of them's gentle, and one of them would never dare run away, and the other one, the first scent on the wind he follows. So, this is dogs, one's more good and one's bad. Not bad, but he's much more passionate. Um, you're not going to train that out of them. They're going to be natural. It's going to be there. Um, I often find, um, I don't know, I guess uh, all the respectful acharyas and in uh, any true spiritual path, our goodness is the foundation upon which they act. Um, but you also see in the Gita, Krishna, especially Krishna, he didn't hang with the Brahmins. He didn't hang in the temple. I mean, it did say that when he was married, he would get up and all 10, uh, was 16,108 Krishnas all went to the temple in the morning and did the morning classes, as Adi says, to show us what has to be done. But there's very little dedicated to that, Krishna doing puja and stuff. Um, you saw that Krishna hung, even Lord Chaitanya, it all seemed so passionate. The wars, the love affairs, the fights against the government, so to speak. Lord Chaitanya and what he had to do to get a mob. These are all. I just wanted to just have you expand upon that. That these things can be dovetailed. If one is stuck in the mode of passion, you know, um, then of course, what do we do with that mode of passion? If you suppress it, it just morphs into something else. And it can often turn into something else that's worse than the outright expression, the honest expression of passion. When somebody, instead of sublimating, but buries this natural propensity. And just one other thing isn't the mode of goodness in and of itself one of the most dangerous modes because it brings happiness to you. And that happiness of only taking so much prasad or food, uh, uh, only, engaging in various and sundry activities, you know, sort of a goody two shoe type of thing. You become happy in the material world. You become happy with your material arrangements because you're doing things just right, not too much, not too little, not too passionate, not too attached. You're just kind of floating through this, and isn't that where the demigods are? They're sort of like for 10,000 celestial years, they are serving Krishna, but they are also enjoying that mode of goodness. Could you like what
Well,
do we do?
yeah,
Yeah,
I get your point.
yeah.
Passion is better than ignorance, because at least you get things done. I've been told by several sources that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur once kind of quipped that I'm praying for the day my disciples rise to the mode of passion. Uh, so you get things done. The only challenge is sometimes you get the wrong things done. But and the mode of goodness, Prabhupada said, generally a devotee acts in the mode of goodness. And so we should actually cultivate it, but it does, as you're saying, have its challenges. So but it's a springboard to transcendence. It's very hard to spring from rajas and tamas into devotional practices. But goodness is good. It's just not the goal. And like you said, one can be proud of goodness. And then what is pride? A symptom of passion. So you easily can go down from goodness to passion. So it's all, ultimately, as you kind of point out, the whole thing's a mess. And we should take shelter of Krishna. It's but while we're here, in general, cultivating goodness and not being proud of it, but is what Prabhupada recommends. In some places, Prabhupada equates the two, Krishna consciousness and goodness, but we know that there's some difference. Bhakti Center, you have your hand up?
Is there, oh, Johnny Typerboo?
Yeah,
Go
hi,
ahead.
Vraj Vihari from
Oh, hi, well, Jani Thakur.
thank you for your class. I was just wondering if you could repeat because I was listening, but then you rattled off these amazing ways that you describe goodness, passion, and ignorance with three different terms, and you did it three times.
Ah, okay, I can rattle those off. I cheated. I got those from Satyaraj Prabhu, a BTG article
Okay, great.
wrote. I'll put it in the chat. How does that sound?
Uh, okay, except after the call, they're gone. But if you want
Oh,
to,
you don't. Oh, okay. In terms of self-giving, goodness, selfish, and self-destructive. We had this devotee in Bengali devotee, elderly man in his 80s who used to deliver the mail in Vrindavan, and he used to always say, "Braja Bihari, I'm the worst kind of fish, selfish."
uh,
Okay, and then the other one was conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. And the last one was transparent, translucent, and opaque, which, we get that from Bhagavad Gita also, right? The womb, child covered by the womb, the dust of the mirror, like that. There was another hand up before, but it disappeared.
it was
I have a follow-up question. Can I?
All right, yes.
When we're practicing mode of goodness in bhakti, what does that look like? Are we supposed to be like acting like a robot, regulated, punctual at all times, regulated to the extreme extent, bored out of our mind, And question, did Arjuna fight in the mode of goodness in a sense that, excuse me, I'm going to take shower and then I'll kill you for Krishna? How did that look? Or he was all sweaty and bloody and fighting? That's the
Well, he,
follow-up
he
to
did
Bima's
do
question.
Ashman, even when, the Brahmastra was coming his way and stuff. Um, yeah, we kind of it's sad that we think of the mode of goodness in that way, like, oh my God, it's gonna be boring, mode of goodness. Uh, the mode of goodness is you see things clearly. You know what? Jimmy Cliff understands that, right? I can see clearly now, right? You see things clearly. It's great, right? And you understand that when you're talking to somebody, when you go out on the street and on First Avenue, and you all of a sudden now you see living entities, but you also know that there's a soul inside of them, and they're conditioned by the modes of material nature, and you just see that, oh my gosh, this is such a rajasic situation. How can I remain sattvic? You're happy because things are clear, and you're kind to other people, and you treat everyone with respect. It's all the good stuff. And sometimes, yeah, well, okay, everyone's bringing up the Mahabharata, and Of course, war is sometimes necessary, and therefore kshatriyas are necessary. All four uh, varnas are necessary, right? Just like I remember I was working in the government. I retired from, well, I still work for NASA, but I work for the government, and the janitors went on strike. And within 3 days, the whole building was uninhabitable. It smelt is so, you can say, oh, well, Sudras, give me a break. No, we needed those people who would, the maintenance people. Otherwise, we couldn't do nothing, right? So we all need each other, but devotees we're, especially when we take Brahminical initiation, we are supposed to, chant 3 Gayatris a day and somehow take advantage of the Brahma Muhurta hour and all that good stuff. But like you're pointing out, it shouldn't be done mechanically. It should be done with consciousness of Krishna. And then it becomes really, really nice. But if when you go to war, then definitely, get into the mode of passion a bit, or different things we may have to do in Krishna's service. But tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mama nusmara yudhicha. We do our activities, and anusmara doesn't just mean remember; it means intensely remember. So if we want to be intense, well, like Arjuna's on the battlefield and he wants to be intense, he's fighting because Mama Nusmara Yudhicha, but he's first Mama Nusmara, intensely remembering Krishna. So that should be our motto. We intensely remember Krishna, then we're, a baker, a candlestick maker, and a Sankirtan preacher, and whatever our occupations are. Is that all right, Ananda Bihari?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
And thank you for
boredom.
attending this class, because you always thank everybody else, but nobody gets to thank you.
Thank you for thanking me, Vraj Vihari, Prabhu.
And I think our time is up for the day.
One more minute. Maybe we can take one more
minute.
burning
Okay.
question.
I had my hand up before.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, not so much a question. I think you covered it with Bhima Prabhu, and thank you so much for class. It was such a great reminder that the mode of goodness isn't the goal in and of itself; it's the runway. But you can't launch the plane that without the runway, and surrender really is the goal.
Oh, I love
but
that.
you can't
Launch the plane without the runway. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you made that super clear. So just wanted to reflect that back to you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking the springboard, but the runway is actually probably better now. Devotees
Okay,
are
sometimes the runway is long.
Devotees are really good at analogies. When you think of all the analogies Krishna uses and metaphors Krishna uses in Bhagavad Gita,
so rich.
it's amazing. Brilliant as the sun. I mean, if you could give easily a 10-hour class on all the analogies about the sun or about the moon. Lord Nityananda is like, so many moons at
Benediction moon.
once. And yeah, it's such a it's great, because that means we can go out into the world and we can remember Krishna in so many different ways. We can think about the modes of material nature. We can look up at the sun and think, there's so many great ways, opportunities to think of Krishna in so many different ways.
And we want the mode of goodness. We want the mode of goodness because we want the runway.
It's a heck of a lot better than the other two alternatives. I'll tell you that.
Right. Hare Krishna.
Especially ignorance. It's
Thank you so much. Hare
thank you,
Krishna.
Now we're having darshan, yes?
Darshan time. Yeah, cameras on if you can, please.
Shivana Muralidhar Gaurchandra Bhagavan Ki Jai. Shile Bhagavan Ki Jai. Chandra Radha Muralidhar Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotion and service. I bow down to his lotus feet and pray all of them. By the grace of the grace and spirit of God. Release our Christ, purify, and the rest of the name from the soul of God. And fast to his lotus feet, perfection that fills all desires. And he opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. Use my Lord birth back to birth. Over the static emanates, and by it becomes joy. The Vedic scriptures sing in this character. Our spiritual master gives mercy. Bring me before the Lord, that's the conclusion. Oh, Master, be merciful. It shaded the lotus feet. It makes and spread all over its three worlds. Shade chapter. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Thank you, Janitai Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Afterglow. Please share your thoughts on Rajas, Tamas, and goodness if you have. Sadhvi Didi.
Krishna, and thank you very much for today. In my understanding, what I have learned and understood is Maya serving Krishna, right? In the way Maya is also Krishna. Have I understood it right?
Madam Gopal Prabhu, please answer this. It's a setup. It's a setup question.
Yes, Hare Krishna, thank you. Yes, everyone who has any power in this world, like the demigods, they're all empowered by Krishna and they're serving Krishna. Maya in particular, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Devi Hiesha Gunamai Mama Maya Duratyaya. Devi Hiesha. that this Maya's material nature is divine, meaning it comes from me, and she's serving me. Mama Maya Duratyaya. But it's very difficult to overcome. Mama Vaya Papadyante Maya Metan Tarantite. But one who surrenders to me, they can cross over. So Maya plays the role of quality control. Her job is to keep the spiritual world spiritual. So if someone who is selfish wants to break into the spiritual world, her job is to keep that person here until they can get rid of their selfishness, basically. So that's her job. She's the superintendent of the prison. It's a maximum security prison that nobody can escape from. And she does an incredibly good job. There's a place for her. And so she is definitely Krishna's servant, yes.
And also I learned and understood that just because I'm surrendering to Lord Krishna, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't have a problem with I don't have addiction, but I'm just saying example. If I have an addiction and I'm trying my best, but still I can't make it, even though that I am surrendering to Krishna, even though I do service for Krishna, still I have so much difficulty to fight this. Doesn't that mean it's because you are not going to win? Whatever you do, just do your service, just do whatever you're doing, devotional service, whatever you're doing with a good conscience. But it doesn't mean that I could have that how to say, that power or that ability to win this disease. You know what I mean?
Yes. Actually, like that verse that I quoted, Krishna says that. Very difficult to overcome. Nobody can overcome Maya on their own. So if I'm addicted, actually most of us in the conditioned world are addicted to something or another. Maybe not to drugs, maybe not to alcohol, but we could be addicted to just being worshipped. We could be addicted to having some power over other people. We could be addicted to those kind of subtle things. So addictions are basically part of our life here of selfishness. And sometimes, pretty much all the time, we cannot break out of that disease on our own. And even if I were to say, oh, I'm surrendered to Krishna now, so I should be free from this addiction. But it's a gradual process. Krishna says it's a gradual process.
I don't mean that to be free, but I mean to be easier to fight it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
I don't mean, okay, now I am a devotee, now I'm serving Krishna, everything will be okay. No. I don't mean that way. But I mean the difficulty, even the difficulty, it will be easier for me to fight it.
Yes. That is a fact. That we have seen. Krishna says once one acquires a higher taste, then the lower taste gradually goes. It becomes much, much easier. We know, I mean, Prabhupada's big miracle was to lift so many deeply addicted individuals out of very heavy addictions by giving Krishna consciousness. So it does become very much easier if we follow the process. It's like saying that, will I be able to see my face in the mirror once I clean the mirror? Yes. And it'll be easier when you start cleaning. The process of Krishna consciousness means Cheta Darpana Marjanam. It's the opening words of Shikshashtakam. The process of Krishna consciousness, which is Harinam Sankirtan. When we start cleaning, we start seeing a little bit. It becomes easier. It's not 100% clean yet. We still see a lot of dirt is still there, but suddenly becomes easier because what we're seeking the bliss and the pleasure, and that is available in Krishna's holy name and Krishna Prasadam and association of devotees. So 100%, it becomes easier. I mean, at least we have seen it happen. We have seen in our own lives that we've experienced it, isn't it? That things have become easier. Maybe we're not 100% there, but definitely a little bit easier. The rope that is tying us, it's still tight, but it's become looser now, a little bit loose. There's a hope that I can one day come out, but it's still tight. For sure it becomes easier. And then the more we spend time with devotees in a progressive way, it becomes easy to the point that before you realize it, the ropes are gone. You're still holding on like this. You don't, oh, wait, the ropes are gone. So it can happen just like that. I've seen devotees give up alcohol and they were complete alcoholics. I've seen devotees who are very addicted to all kinds of, say, gambling even, and they're destroying their homes and their families, and they give up that. So those kind of things we've seen. We've seen generation after generation how Krishna has made it easier. So that's a fact. Yes, Sadhu Mataji.
Thank you.
Isn't there a verse somewhere in the Shastra where it says, for someone who is surrendered, even difficult things becomes easy to accomplish, and for someone who lacks surrender, even an easy thing becomes very difficult to achieve. Something like that. Is there a verse like that?
Yes, there are verses. One verse that comes to mind is Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim, that the mercy of the spiritual master, mercy of the Lord, is so powerful that even someone who is unable to speak, or dumb, like a deaf, dumb person, can start speaking and eloquently, and even a lame person who doesn't have functional legs can cross over mountains if one gets the mercy. So if one surrender to the Lord. So those are impossible things, but the mercy of the Lord, mercy of spiritual master makes things possible like that. And that comes through surrender for sure. So yeah.
Thank you, Madam Prabhu. Angel.
Yeah, I still have a hard time when they talk about passion in the sort of negative way, because I think of passion as good. You can be passionate about spirituality, passionate about serving Krishna, passionate about doing good. So I still have a hard time with thinking passion in this negative way, that the way it seems to be talked about here.
Yes,
This is a
that's
really
the thing.
this is a really good question. And we used to deal with firewood a lot, and everybody has a different quality, the mode of passion, mode of goodness. If you have cherry wood or locust, it's a hard wood. It'll burn all night, and it's not easy to get it lighted, but once it goes, it'll keep going slowly and steadily for a long time. Something like pine is very, very light, more like the mode of goodness, it burns quickly, but it's soft, and it doesn't last as long. So every piece of wood, no matter what kind of a tree it comes from, has the potential to be fire. The sun's energy has flowed into the leaves of the tree, produced the wood, and it's there in a latent state. And under the right conditions, it can be evoked. So somebody, like Angel's saying, somebody in a passionate kind of a quality, when they're engaged in devotional service, it's transcendental. Somebody in a mode of goodness can also be engaged in devotional service, and it's transcendental. There were questions about those two things in the class today. So it's not that they don't each have the possibility of burning. I hope that analogy will help. Ogar Sishila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Adipusha.
I have a question
Bhima,
from
Bhima, go ahead.
I have a question for Madan Gopal. So I just wanted to extend that dog metaphor, not metaphor, but example, anecdote. So I have one that is, 100% motivated to do not disobedient things, but do things that is in his nature. And one who has come to understand that his master has some boundaries and parameters and stuff like that. And so I have these two dogs, but I love them equally. And I'm willing to forgive the one who is passionate and wanders and gets in trouble and sometimes tests me. Like I'll say, don't do that, and will look at me right in the eyes and know it's wrong. You can see it. A dog expresses themselves, have certain body language. Like, I know I'm doing wrong, but I'm going to do it anyways. I feel like that's me. That's my life. And could you tell us, either give us an example or probably expound on the philosophy, how Krishna, because we're, and I'm only speaking to myself, because we're his dogs, and we're loyal and we depend upon him, or like my dogs depend upon me. He always returns. He always returns. So there's instant forgiveness. And then there is just I'm equal to both of them. Is this true also, Krishna, with us? If we're kind of like a bit disobedient, does that mean that he, just first of all, does that mean that we love him less than the obedient disciple? Because I know that my disobedient dog loves me as his master, but he just wants to do what he wants to do, even though I'm telling him not to do it. So could you sort of like wrap that up so I don't feel so bad doggish?
Yes, Viham Prabhu. It's a very deep question, and it alludes to our nature. So we talked quite a bit today. Prabhu mentioned, right? Vraj Vihari Prabhu gave a very nice elaboration of three modes, right? And those of us who are conditioned in the material world are conditioned by the three modes, and different proportions of the modes are prominent, right? That's why you have some people who are just naturally very inclined toward mode of goodness kind of activities, and then some are naturally inclined to do other things, and so on. Similarly, you can see that in your two dogs. You can see their deep natural inclinations. They both love you like anything. Their love for you is no less intense than the other dog's love. Their loyalty is no less loyal, because that is their core nature, to love and to be loyal. But then their behaviors may be different proportions of the three modes. And same thing does apply to human beings. Now, we have two levels of conditioning by the modes. Two levels. One is deep conditioning. It's called swabhava. It's our innate psychophysical nature that we're born with, we're formed from. This conditioning was formed from impressions from previous lives, dominance of certain gunas from prior karmic activity, from previous choices. And then based on that, the Lord's placement of us in a specific birth, a specific body, specific psychology, and specific culture. For example, some people are naturally reflective and peaceful. Those are the Brahmana types. Others are ambitious, fiery, leadership-oriented. They're Kshatriya. Others enjoy building, producing, or serving, or doing business, Vaishya, or just doing labor work. They're Shudra. They just, so the deeper conditioning is relatively fixed in one lifetime, this deeper one. If your mind is wired to be an entrepreneur, you can't just decide to become a monk like a Brahmana and be comfortable. You just won't be comfortable. And if you're wired to be a Brahmana and you try to go into administration or leadership or something, or not leadership, but if you want to go into war, it's not going to work. You won't be that good. You won't survive very long. And we've seen that happen when people make wrong decisions. So how do you know which one I am? Well, you look at you observe your qualities and your inclinations, your talents, and all that. You have to kind of figure out that. So that's why Varnashram Dharma is there. Varnashram Dharma aligns our swabhava, intrinsic nature, with our external duties, which is swadharma. Swabhava and swadharma, when they align, then there is internal peace and there's social sanity. So instead of expecting everyone to be the same, like expecting your two dogs to be the same, you don't do it. It's asking for trouble. What we do is we channel each person's propensities toward moving toward God. So if a person is working in alignment with their varna, the person is more peaceful, more stable, more productive. The person has a better chance then of spiritual advancement, and society as a whole has a better chance of spiritual advancement because there's not inner conflict. Of course, we know it's not cast by birth. We know that. So now there's that. What is the other level of conditioning? It's called shallow conditioning. That's changeable. Like certain things we can't give up right away. We can give up certain bad habits. In Krishna consciousness, we expect everybody to give up meat eating. Whether you're Brahmanical inclined or Shudra inclined, doesn't matter. Meat eating has to go. You know what I'm saying? So those are shallow conditioning that we can help each other really kick out. there shouldn't be too many excuses for that. You see, the habits, behavior, environment. Like we can change our environment. Like, we don't want to go to bars anymore. That can be changed. But our inclination to be, a manager, that's very hard to change. It's a kind of a talent. It's an inclination. So when you accept those two natures, you change the changeable, accept what you cannot change, and that's the prayer of serenity, isn't it? My Lord, give me the wisdom to know the difference between what I can change and what I cannot. And that's all framed and encapsulated in the Varnashram system. This is why Prabhupada wanted to enable that system, and he kind of encouraged that. So that's how it works. Now, there's something called allowable weaknesses. Even in corporate team building, we have this concept called Belbin, Belbin. You can look it up, where depending on people's talents and inclinations and their general modes, we give them different roles in the company or in a team. So when you build a team, you want a diversity of thoughts and angles. So if a person is a particular role, then that person is allowed to have certain weaknesses, because those weaknesses don't come in the way of productivity. But if the person is put in a role where the weakness is not acceptable, then there'll be chaos. That's called team building. Similar in society, we have a variety of conditioning. And so we allocate roles so that there is productivity, there's social sanity, and everybody makes progress. So we want to encourage that. But we can only do that when we understand the framework, and then we find our place in the system, and we'll be comfortable. That's just the high level understanding of how we can apply the three modes. I hope that helps, Bhima Prabhu. And you'll still love all your dogs.
Yeah, your dogs aren't a problem. They're perfectly fine. But your expectation, that's the problem, Bhima Prabhu. You are the problem. Does that help?
Yes, of course, Prabhu. It's nice to hear the echo that you are the problem. That's all I keep hearing. One day I think I'll get.
Hare Krishna, can I offer something in this context?
Go ahead, Adipusha Prabhu.
Okay, the Varnashram system is excellent way to offer doorway in the beginning stage for a person to use his particular talents and propensity within the society, different ways to contribute to pushing on Lord Chaitanya's movement. But interestingly enough, although this is a fantastic system and it really works well, like Babu was explaining, that there's another level called Vaishnava. Like what Chaitanya said, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Shudra, I'm not a Brahmachari, I'm a servant of the servant. And there's a point where after you've gone in the doorway and you've taken up devotional service and you're applying yourself to devotional service and purification goes on and you're already contributing in a particular way that you're comfortable with, there's actually a point, according to Shastra, that's above the modes of material nature, that's above the Varnashram system. And the Bhagavad Gita says, Midbit Bo, Satwan Sto, near Gunar. It says that the verse about how rise above the modes, O Arjuna. When you get to the point of saying, Lord, what do you want me to do? And you're really willing to serve as a Brahmin, as a Kshatriya, as a Prabhupada came here, he cooked, he cleaned, he took care of the financing, he even acted as a Kshatriya and kicked rascals out of the temple, So he's acting on the Vaishnava level. So Varnashram Dharma is good and it works. But then if you get stuck, I am a Brahmin and I don't do any cleaning, I only do worship, when we get stuck on those Varnashram level and we think that that's the goal, like you take water and you pour it in a square glass and it's square. In a round glass, it's round. There's a point where we're satisfied to do whatever Krishna wants. The gopis were willing to go to hell. Did they have a propensity to go to hell? No. But they had a propensity to please Krishna and they didn't care what happened to them. So let's not forget that there's something above Varnashram Dharma. In the dialogue between what's his name and Lord Chaitanya, can't think of his name, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Varnashram Dharma, Lord Chaitanya, no, tell me more. What's above that? Don't get stuck. I haven't heard.
Okay.
I heard Prabhupada's class one day in the Bhakti Center, and he said, don't get stuck in deity worship. And I was, what? Don't get stuck in deity worship? So we will do
But
anything.
at the same time, Adipusha Prabhu, Arjuna was a warrior. He has propensity to fight, and he was asked to fight. He wasn't asked to cook. He wasn't asked to dance in Rasa Lila. And gopis similarly were not asked to fight the war. How come, they're always asked to do what they have propensity for
That's
doing?
where you start. That's where you start. You're correct. That's where you start, but don't get stuck there. There's something above that. You tell ask the same question every day. Why did they ask the gopis to fight in the war? No, they were doing what they were doing, making garlands or singing, or but there's a point where you stop thinking, I like to do this and I don't like to do that. There's a point where you get above that, thinking, I do what I like, I don't do what I don't like. Where you say, Lord,
But
whatever.
still,
Okay, you can deny that, but anyway, that's what
I'm not
Prabhupada told
denying.
us.
I'm just seeking clarification. Where in the Shastra? Where's I'm still looking for an example of somebody being asked something beyond their propensity. Like Srila Prabhupada was a preacher, and he was preaching. That was propensity, and that's how he was engaged, and that's what his guru asked him to do. Is there an example in the Shastra where somebody is asked something that's outside their propensity?
He gave you an example, but you just throw it out the window.
No.
Prabhupada came here, he was
yeah.
washing the pots.
Yes.
Prabhupada came here, he was cleaning. He was asking for donations. He was fighting like a Kshatriya when somebody came and they were doing something inappropriate in the temple. He was willing to do whatever. So if you don't want to accept Prabhupada's example, I don't know what to
I
say.
accept it. I accept it.
Okay, good. Well, then don't ask me the same stupid question.
I want to ask the same question.
It's a good question. It's a good question. You got the answer, but then you can't hear it. I don't know what to say.
No, say what's in line with Guru Sadhana and Shastra, like you always
No,
do.
I think the question was, yes, Prabhupada example is there for sure. Are there Shastra example? That's the question. That line, I'm sure there are. It's just I can't think of any right now. Like I think the example of the gopis, although that's not exactly true, but if the gopis were willing to go to hell, they don't care. Actually that's a good example, the gopis, because according to gopis dharma, they're not supposed to leave their husbands and go to dance with another man at night.
That's right.
They broke their dharma, varnashram dharma, for Krishna. So that's a great example. Adipurush Prabhu, you brought the gopis example. So I think that's a Shastric example to answer your question, Prabhu.
Yeah, now I can relax.
Now you can relax. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Sundaranandaji is raising his hand. Sundaranandaji, go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna, Hare Prabhu. Yeah, so sorry. Okay, well, Adipurush Prabhu was giving his extreme examples. I was thinking maybe there is like a little bit of a middle ground. Like for instance, we are told sometimes we need to step outside our comfort zone. So it's probably thinking of the devotees, the early days of the movement when in New Vrindavan, I think they didn't know. I mean, many of them were not contractors or construction workers or civil engineers, but I think they just learned it overnight and got the job done. Similarly, I think the printing press, I've heard devotees who just didn't know anything, but then they took up courses and then they learned it overnight and did it. So probably, I think what Adipurush Prabhu was trying to say is like sometimes you have to step outside the comfort zone and not box ourselves too much into thinking that we are this kind or that kind. But yeah, of course, I can see the point where it would be difficult to sustain if we go against our fundamental our nature. I think that's
the point. I think that's the point Adipurush Prabhu was making, that don't get stuck in deity worship. How you get stuck in deity worship? Well, don't think that that's all I'm going to do. That the other thing is not my seva, Prabhu. That attitude, and Prabhupada's attitude was, we are fighting a war, and when you war, then person making the sandwich is also a person picking up the machine guns, okay, and so on. So when you need to be done, you got to do it. At the same time, he's also very pragmatic. Like one devotee asked Prabhupada, I think our movement needs more doctors. So I'm thinking of going to medical school. And Prabhupada said, no. but do the needful. No, this is not a good, intelligent example of doing the needful. You find a doctor, make him a devotee or her a devotee. Then you add doctors to your movement. Don't go to medical school. And right now, you do book distribution. You're good at that. So certain things make sense, but then sometimes we get stuck. We get proud. Bro, can you clean that? Oh, don't you know I'm head pujari? Then clean it with your head. You know, I mean, we get stuck. We get proud about these things. So that was, area. Yes. What's that?
For the Guru now. Thank you very much. I have an 8:30 appointment.
Oh, it's time.
I have
Yes.
to run. Thank you very much, Madan Gopal Prabhu, Adipurusha Prabhu, Sundar Nandaji, Jeffrey Prabhu. Welcome back, Jeffrey. Were you under the modes or above? Sometimes.
I don't know if I was inside of them.
Yeah.
I'm glad
Hare
you're
Krishna.
back.
Hare Krishna. Nice seeing your effulgent faces, dear devotees. You're beyond the modes. Hare Krishna.